Hi everyone, this is Andrei from ChromeFX Films. Thank you for joining me today. This is the first part of my 2D game development series that I will be creating over the next few weeks. To get this series off the ground, I'll be starting by covering some of the fundamentals of Unity's 2D tools and what you need to know before I get into the actual game development segment. So we're going to get started here. This is Unity 3D. If you have not used this software before, it is a free game engine. It's available online. You can download it. There is a paid for version, but you get some advanced features that most indie developers don't need to use. So the software was originally a 3D game development software, but only recently, in about the past year or so, Unity Technologies, the creators of Unity, released a 2D update that allows you to change the view and perspective of the main camera object that you're using in your game scene. And they implemented some 2D physics systems, and it's just a huge update that changed a lot of what people were used to before. And when the update first came out, there wasn't that much documentation, so I got the opportunity to teach myself it and teach it to inner city Baltimore students for about 2 weeks. And over that time period, I learned a lot, and I want to share with you guys what I know, and hopefully it will help you. So what I'm going to be covering in this series is creating a character, a basic character controller with action features, which basically means if you press the space bar, the character will either launch a fireball or open a door, something along those lines. Basic level design, triggers and events that goes along with the action feature with the character controller. Winning and losing, so running into enemies, falling in lava, and tracking score, which is going to be really helpful for coins or if you have a 2D game that involves keeping track of a score. Many 2D games do. Sound effects, so sound design and plain sounds to make your game have a more polished feel. And checkpoints. Checkpoints are very helpful once you get to a certain part in your level. If you have a very long level, if your character happens to die later on in the level, you do not want him to respawn, or him or her to respawn at the very beginning of the level. So checkpoints help with that. You can have the character spawn in certain sections of the map according to a script that we're going to write using JavaScript. First thing you want to do is you want to make sure you are in your 2D settings. So you can't start working in 2D unless your game knows that it's supposed to be 2D. So up here, there's this button here. This is, you can tell when it's highlighted. When I press it, originally, by default, you should start with this 3D scene. So the difference between the 3D and 2D settings is when you import objects into your project, over here in the project tab, you will have a list of assets, and I only have one asset. This is a box character. This is a character I made. I'll be using him in future videos. But when your project is set to 2D, Unity will import your assets and import the textures to a sprite type, which basically sprite sheets and sprites are what 2D games have traditionally used over the past 20 years or so since they've been invented. Sprites are a series of textures in one large image that has the computer slice all those images up and then play them consecutively rapidly to create an illusion of a smooth animation. If you did not start your new project, actually I'll show you how to start a new project. When you first load up Unity, you will have an option to create a new project, and in case you didn't set it to 2D already, I'm going to show you how you can do that. So I'm going to press new project here, and right here it says setup defaults for. You want to make sure this says 2D, and then you can import some of the pre-packages here that come with it. I, as you can see, have downloaded several projects already. You will not have this many. You will probably have about 10 to 15. And you're going to press create. Of course, save your project to a folder, and you will get something that looks just like this. So I'm going to import a object really quick to give you an example. Alright, these are tiles. I found these online. There was a man who generously uploaded all of his sprites for free. They are royalty free. The textures will be in the description of this video if you want to use them. I highly recommend it. They're very high quality, a lot of fun to work with. You can make a game very quick. Just make sure you support the guy who made it. So I have this cube here, or this is a box actually, it's a crate. So I'm going to zoom in here, and as you can see I'm moving around this camera, but how am I doing that? Okay, if you hold the middle mouse button, if your mouse does have one, you will pan the camera around like this. Also, if you hold Alt and left click, it will do the same thing. And the reason they're the same is when you change the 3D view, you actually rotate. When you hold Alt and left click, he actually rotates in a 3D space. But when you're in a 2D space, it doesn't make a difference. So pressing Q, W, E, and R, all are hotkeys for these buttons up here. This is a movement. This is object movement. This is camera movement. This is the rotation, and this is the scaling tool. So scaling, rotating, moving, and just panning. So when your character is in the scene, he's going to need a collider, so that's very important. And a collider is basically the only thing that's stopping your character from falling through the floor, and in general, it's what makes your character interact with objects. So they're very important to create boundaries in your game, and to add them, you're going to click this component tab, Physics 2D, and Box Collider 2D. So now, if I happen to have an object that's jumping around the scene or a character, he will not fall through because this has a collider. So I want to throw something else out there, and this is a dirt hill. Now the problem with this is you don't want your character to collide in this box. You want the character to slide or walk down this ramp however you want. But there's no collider for ramp. There's only circle, box, edge, and polygon. Well, the answer is polygon. A polygon collider allows you to create a custom collider around any object. So if you hold shift and click, you'll create, there'll be this green dot you can drag around, and the game will automatically create a collider that will be able to interact with your main character. So if you have an object that has a very weird shape, that's when this comes in handy. If you look at the demo project that Unity Technologies released when they first released this giant update, it has a UFO in, and it has a UFO in the scene, and they used the polygon collider to create a shape for the collider that matched the shape of the UFO. Something else I would like to mention is once I get to the level designing segment, it is important for you to know that when you are creating objects in your scene, sometimes you want the characters to walk in front of objects, and you want characters to walk behind objects. So I'm going to give you an example. So let's say that this coin, this box coin, is my character, and this fence is in front. Okay, great. See, it's in front. So let's keep it like that. All right. So this box coin, technically he's walking. See, that looks a little weird. He's in front of this crate, but he's behind the fence. So let's say he's walking in front. But how do I do this? Okay, so he's behind the object. That's not right. So the way you do this is where sorting layers come into effect here. Over here, once you select an object, you'll get a sorting layer. They're all set to default, but what this means is if you set it to the foreground, the object is going to appear in the foreground. If you select the fence and you select character layer, this is basically the middle layer. This is where the character interacts. If you've ever played the Super Mario Brothers game, you will see this a lot, the turtles that jump out, and whenever you run into boxes or crates or go down pipes, those are all in the character layers. But the only difference is, let's say for example, when Mario goes down the pipes, he goes behind the pipes. And the reason for that is that they have an order which is greater than Mario himself. Mario might be 0 and the pipe might be 1, which means anything that is greater than 0, that basically means it's going to be in front of the object. So if you have a character that's 0 and a wall that's 1, the character will walk behind the wall because the wall has a greater value than the player. And you can set these layers because you could add more. These are only a few. If you click add sorting layer here, you're going to get this list. This is by default the lists that come with Unity when you create a new project that's 2D. And you can change the order. the order is not very important, but just make sure that you know the order for yourself. Otherwise, your game could look very funny as certain objects are floating or walking in front of other objects that should not be there. But as you get into more complicated games, more complicated level design, that becomes more and more important. If you play games like Rayman Origins, that game makes extensive use of this feature, and it does it masterfully because there are several objects in the scene at once. Then there's the parallax effect, which is something I'll get into in my basic level design video. I've been using Unity for a while, and I've been getting used to the 2D tools for a while now, and the demo game that I made for the Baltimore City class that I was teaching is available in the description. You can play it. You can see what I did. I used these tiled objects, so you can see how I made use of them. There's sound effects, triggers, score, checkpoints. Everything that I'm going to be talking about in this series, I will be referencing back to my original game demo. So if you're ever lost or confused, feel free to load up that game and play it and get some idea of where I'm going and what I'm going for with the end product. I really want you guys to take away from this something that you will be able to apply to any of the games that you are developing in the future. I don't want to limit you by giving you a specific set of rules and guidelines that you should follow. I'm going to guide you through this series, but my end product and my Fliggle game demo that's in the description is just one example of ways that you can use the 2D tools, and I really can't wait to see what you guys are going to come up with. So I'm really excited to be working on this series, and I will see you guys in the next video.